on a wind-torn hill in October of 1066, as arrows rained like iron hail, and the clash of Norman steel echoed across the fields of Hastings, a king fought with the fury of a lion cornered in his den. His name was Harold Godwinson, the last crowned Anglo-Saxon king of England. To some he was a usurper, snatching a throne that had been promised to another. To others he was the greatest warrior of his age, a man whose courage was carved into the very soil of England. His reign was brief, just 9 months, but his death marked the twilight of Anglo-Saxon England, the end of an age, and the beginning of a Norman dawn. This is not just the story of a king. It is the saga of loyalty and betrayal, oaths and ambition, blood spilled on foreign shores and English soil alike. Harold's fate was written in the stars long before Hastings, yet he met it with unyielding defiance. Harold was born around 1022, the son of Godwin, Earl of Wessex, one of the most powerful men in England under King Connaught, and later Edward the Confessor. His mother, Gytha, was a Danish noblewoman niece of Canute, himself giving Harold both English and Scandinavian blood in his veins. The Godwin family was vast and ambitious. Harold's brothers included Tostig, the tempestuous Earl of Northumbria, Gyrth, Leofwine, and Wulfnoth. Together they controlled vast swaths of land, wealth, and power, rivaling even the crown itself. When Edward the Confessor, a pious and childless king, ruled England, the question of succession loomed like a storm cloud. Harold, rising to prominence as Earl of Wessex after his father's death in 1053, was the strongest candidate. He was handsome, charismatic, and above all, a proven warrior and statesman. By the 1060s, Harold was more than just Edward's leading earl. He was England's de facto ruler. He led armies against the Welsh, crushing Gruffydd ap Llywelyn in 1063, bringing Wales under English dominance. He negotiated with nobles, brokered peace, and stood as the kingdom's protector. But across the sea in Normandy, another man watched and waited: William, Duke of Normandy. One of the most hotly debated moments in Harold's life came in 1064. Sailing across the Channel, perhaps on a diplomatic mission, perhaps by storm and accident, Harold landed in Normandy. There he became the guest of Duke William. William later claimed that during this visit Harold swore an oath on holy relics, pledging to support William's claim to the English throne after Edward's death. Some say Harold was coerced, others that he never truly meant it. Yet in medieval thought, to swear on relics was to bind one's very soul. Whether oath or fabrication, William would wield it as a weapon, declaring Harold a perjurer when he later took the throne. On January 5, 1066, King Edward died. With no children, the succession crisis exploded. 3 men claimed the throne. 1. Harold Godwinson, chosen by the English nobles, the Witan, and crowned the very next day. 2. William of Normandy, who declared Harold had sworn to support his right. 3. Harald Hardrada, King of Norway, who based his claim on old treaties and the legacy of the Vikings. Harold was crowned swiftly in Westminster Abbey on January 6, 1066. For the English, this was lawful and right. The Witan had spoken, the sacred anointing completed. For William and Hardrada, it was theft. Thus began a year of storms, invasions, and destiny. In September 1066, while Harold kept his eyes southward for William's Norman fleet, the Viking thunder came from the north. Harold Hardrada, a towering warrior king, sailed with perhaps 10,000 men, joined by Harold's own estranged brother, Tostig Godwinson. The invaders crushed an English force at Fulford near York. England trembled, but Harold moved with lightning speed. Gathering his housecarls in the Fyrd, he marched nearly 200 miles north in less than 2 weeks. At Stamford Bridge on September 25, 1066, he struck. The battle was ferocious. Hardrada, legendary for his exploits across Europe, fell with an arrow to the throat. Tostig too was slain, his rebellion ending in blood. Of the vast Viking host, only a handful survived, limping back to Norway in scattered ships. England rejoiced. Harold had saved the kingdom. Yet fate was cruel. Just as he claimed victory in the north, news came that William had landed in the south. William's fleet had arrived at Pevensey on September 28, 1066. He burned villages, built castles, and dared Harold to face him. Exhausted from Stamford Bridge, Harold nonetheless raced south. On October 14, 1066, the two armies met at Senlac Hill near Hastings. The English shield wall stood strong, a wall of iron and wood. All day, Norman cavalry and archers hurled themselves at it, breaking like waves against a cliff. At times, the Normans feigned retreat, luring parts of Harold's army down the hill, cutting them to pieces. As the sun dipped low, the shield wall began to waver. Then came the fatal moment. An arrow, perhaps loosed by chance, struck Harold in the eye. Norman knights surged forward and Harold fell, cut down where he stood, surrounded by his loyal housecarls. The last Anglo-Saxon king was dead. With Harold's death, resistance collapsed. William marched on London, crowned king on Christmas Day, 1066. The Norman Conquest had begun, reshaping England's language, laws, and lords. But Harold did not vanish from memory. To some chroniclers, he was a usurper who broke his oath. To others, he was England's lion who defended his land against invaders from both north and south, dying as the last defender of Anglo-Saxon freedom. Harold II's reign lasted only 9 months, but his story burns eternal. He was the last crowned Anglo-Saxon king of England, the victor of Stamford Bridge, who crushed the Viking threat, the fallen hero of Hastings, whose death marked the end of an age. In Harold, we see the tragedy of a man caught between oaths and crowns, family and foes, God and fate. His body may have been cut down on Hastings Field, but his saga endures as the last great chapter of Anglo-Saxon England. As the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle mournfully wrote after Hastings, "Here Harold, king of the English, fell, and with him England's glory,